Hey everybody, this is Brett, TN Artist. Thanks for coming back by the channel. I appreciate it. Well, I looked at that last video and it looked like I had an extra 20 pounds, so I trimmed the beard a little bit and got it cut back, so I think it looks much nicer now. Also improved the lighting, because for whatever reason that last one was really orange and I looked like I had jaundice. So, you know, a little bit of a trim, better lighting, looks better now. So anyway, today's video, just to let you know, is a how-to video on how to draw dragon eyes. So I've been wanting to try and work on these myself because I've realized as I was doing some other ones, I had some good pieces, but then I realized I needed to do more practice work. And so that's kind of what I'm doing here. Some practice work of an eye. I really like how it turned out, and I try to cover all the different aspects of the way I did it and break it all down. If you have questions like normal, leave me a comment below and just ask away. I'll do everything I can to answer it. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the channel, which hopefully you do, and share it with all your friends. So without further ado, here's the video.
So let's get started with this. Okay, so basically what we're looking at here is a 2700 by 1624 pixels canvas here in Rebelle. So some of the things I started doing different with this, as you can see, was by shaping out the eye and really kind of some of the different planes that we have for it. That's one of the things that I hadn't been doing in the past that honestly was kind of aggravating me when I would go to lay out the scales and everything else, and something I'm really trying to work on to fix. So what I've done here is kind of mapped out where the folds, everything are going to be. And then from there, I'm using that map to start very precisely lay in where I want the scales. Now, I say precisely, meaning that I'm following these shapes, but the scales themselves are freeformed. Actually, as you can see with the one I just did there, I don't tend to pick up my cursor when I'm drawing these out. I just kind of freeform them in and scribble, and I like the way it flows that way. I'm using the marker tool on here because I liked how it worked. Like I said, one of the things with Rebelle I've noticed, the ink pen doesn't tend to be as smooth as it is, say, in like an Art Rage 5 or something like that. I think mainly because it's just calculating more and trying to calculate the pressure and everything more, whereas the marker is just there. So anyway, so following the contours of it, once you've got it laid out, kind of mapped out where your eye is going to be, then you can take the scales and think about which direction they're going to go and kind of follow those lines that you've got mapped in there. And you can see where I've done that here. And then I go back in and start filling in the bigger spaces with bigger scales. Again, thinking of how the smaller scales are inset where the eye, and then this would be like around where the skull would be the eye socket. So that's kind of my thought process here as I was doing this, and then going back in and filling in all the spaces and voids with these different sized scales. And my idea here from the beginning was to lay out the shapes of the scales and then go back in and darken them around so that I had a really deep black skin between the scales and kind of fill it in that way. So that was the plan here. And again, just drawing them out and thinking about the shape of the skull that would be around it, and if the eye was set in and so forth, and then kind of figuring out, okay, where would the cheek be, where would it start, and what if it had a ridge over the eye, and so forth. So just kind of keep drawing those in and being freeform. Again, if you have a space between, then don't worry about it. Just fill it in with a small scale, because if you look at references, you can see that is there. Another thing that I've struggled with, and I said this in other videos, was getting the eye right. So that's why I started with this. That's why I'm actually practicing this, is to work on the eyes and get those laid out and just feel more comfortable with it. So I'm probably going to do several more of these. I don't know if I'll do videos for them, probably, but just again practicing. So I get this about to where I like it, and then I'm going to take and move it with the scale of it. So, and kind of slide it over a little bit right there. So I wanted to enlarge it and take up the full canvas here. One thing that I do at the end of this that you'll see is that I actually go back in and erase the edges, which was always my plan to do so, because again, I just want this to be the eye of it. I've done these eye paintings before and I really enjoy learning from them. But I realized as I was drawing some of these other dragons and stuff that I hadn't been practicing. You know, I was just kind of going in too free-forming it and just wasn't liking it. So I got it all kind of mapped out how I want here. And then from here, start going in with some color. And again, I'm using the marker tool at first and playing around with it. But by having that canvas already tinted and kind of played around with the gradation of it, it really makes these colors pop. And so then I can start, seeing the contrast and not having to go with white. Always get rid of your white. And then, so as I go in and play with this, I noticed one thing that I thought worked really well, and I was kind of playing around with it here, was doing the scribbles in the eye. It really gives a lot of depth without any particular, having to go in and just do all the iris stuff. But anyway, it gives it that feeling of depth to it. So that's what I was doing here. And then I took that same color that I had once I got this kind of laid in like I liked it, and then started going in and laying out some of the scales. And so that's what I'm doing here, trying to get a feel for where I want the highlights and where I want the shadows to be. So I'm still on the line layer, which honestly I should have gone underneath it and drawn underneath or over top of it, but I didn't, and I just started drawing it. Then I do make a copy of it here in a second, because the reason I'm saying I should have done it the other way, my lines start to disappear too much. And you can see that the watercolor is still spreading out and getting that soft feel, and that's why I wanted to use that to do this. But here's where I'd make the new layer, and I was playing around with the different the look of it, but then I just basically went to multiply and then merge the layers together, so it darkened in my line work for me. So but then by grabbing the color and using the same local color that was like in the eye to lay my base for the scales, which I do have the scales, notice that the direction of it is always pointing back towards the eye, more or less. So that's what I was trying to do here, was really kind of get that feel and begin that texture. I did know that I wanted this to be very textured as it went through, like I would be if I were doing it in acrylic or even watercolor. So that's what I was trying to go with here, was really build up that texture. So then I just kept kind of going through and starting laying the highlights and letting the watercolor soften, and just like they would in real life, and playing around with that so I can get that kind of a feel for it. Again, knowing I'm going to push this and pull it and really kind of play around with it. So I am kind of going for highlights in the scales as far as like lighting direction, but I'm also just really going for making the scales themselves multiple colored, no matter where the light's coming from, but actually just kind of play around with the texture and the lines and everything else. So that's what I'm doing here, is trying to play with that. I was trying to play around with some different settings on the pen tool, because I hadn't really used the reed pen or the wood pen. And so I was trying to play around with those there for a little bit, but really, I keep going back to the fountain pen. I like the way it works. And by changing it, so here's the splatter texture with the watercolor brush, and again playing around with that, trying to see how is it going to spread, what kind of texture is it going to leave. I had dried the canvas once, and then it's got a little bit of moisture to it, so you'll see those kind of blossom a little bit as I keep adding in texture. And but then I started really liking the way it was looking. I said, okay, this is starting to give me that texture that I want, that feel, that not, I want it to be smooth, but at the same time I want it to have kind of that, scale look to it. I didn't want it like glass smooth, because to me that just doesn't look right. So yeah, just keep pushing and pulling the colors here. And again, I'm using yellows and oranges as my palette, and then I'm using blue grays as my shadows, and to start adding in some of those textures. And then here again, I've added a new layer. I'm going into so I can throw splatters. Every time you add a layer, it gives you a drier canvas. So, and it dries kind of much the one below it as well. So not completely, it kind of goes to that other option where it's damp but not wet. So here I wanted to see how it would look if I really pushed that dark with like a splattered black. It's okay. I do go back and kind of adjust it a little bit here with the eraser, just kind of pull some of it back in some of the scales, because it got a little too sooty looking. That's not even a real word, but you know what I mean, like if it had soot or something on it. So so yeah, just trying to push the colors and push the shadows. And so I, do that, play around with it, give yourself some license. I mean, especially if you're working digitally, you can undo it, especially at first. I do like getting to that point where I don't undo it as much. I just try to paint around and fix whatever issue there was. Because I saw a video where somebody was talking about that, if you want your digital paintings to look more traditional and to have more of that feel, stop relying on the undo button and just paint to fix whatever it was, because that's what you'd have to do in real life. So on a canvas. So do that. So then I was trying to do. So right here, this is where I'm going back over with the pen tool and darkening in all of the spaces between the scales to really kind of make them pop. And it cleans up some of the edges. So this layer, even though I had black, it was still kind of coming across soft. So I set it to multiply, and I'm using black ink. So it really kind of gives more of an India ink feel to it now. And I really, because again, I wanted to make these scales really stand out. I was looking at some pictures of snakes and crocodiles, alligators and the like, and I noticed that some of them had some really dark skin between the scales, and I liked that. So that's what I was trying to do here. Make sure and look at reference photos. Obviously you don't want to copy them, but you can definitely use them as a starting point for studying and seeing where everything is. And so do that, play around with it and get a feel for it. So that way you know exactly what it's going to look like and how everything's going to be laid out, and you can keep learning as you're going. Go out and take your own photos. It's starting to get warmer here where I'm at, so I've already seen a couple different snakes here and there, so got some good pictures of them. But yeah, so basically the rest of this as coming in, there's probably about 2 minutes left on this part of the video. So that's really what I'm doing is pushing the darks, throwing in a little extra texture here and there, and then getting it to the point. Now you see how I'm not going all the way to the edges there? Because again, I know I'm going to erase that because I don't want this hard edge from the image. So I'm going to erase that so it becomes transparent. And then after I merge it all, here was again where I want to throw in a little bit extra texture and throw in some blue. And I did put 2 layers. I have one layer set to multiply, so I can add in some blue shadows, and then I have another one set to overlay where I can add in highlights. And you'll see me start doing that a little bit more here. Here's the overlay. So now I'm starting to lay in some highlights. And then here in a second, I have the multiply, and I throw in some shadows. So anyway, then I take and merge it all down and erase the outer edges to soften it, so it all kind of just comes back to be like a study that it is. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. As always, leave me some comments below. But the reason I was doing this is that I have it on my Redbubble account, so that I can do it as a phone skin and small prints. And so that's why I was doing this way. So add a few highlights, and then, it's basically done. I'm just kind of doing a little touch up here and there right now, but that is essentially it. So throw on a signature, throw it over on a scale, and done. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll move forward from there. So again, leave a like and a comment, subscribe, anything that you can, and share it with your friends. Appreciate it. Thanks.
So again, I hope you enjoyed that. I know I enjoyed creating it and working on it. Make sure you swing on by on Facebook and join the group over there. It's just a little private group where we kind of share artwork and talk about different things, and just mainly some of how-tos kind of stuff. It's really designed to be a lessons art group to where we can go over different things in it and have more one-on-one conversations. So feel free to jump over there and partake in that. And again, thanks for stopping by. Visit my website, tnartist.me, and I do have some artwork on there that's for sale and stuff that'll help support the channel. But other than that, I appreciate your time. Hope you enjoyed it. And like I said, leave a comment and everything else below. Until next time, see ya.